Welcome to this video. Today I want to talk about the massive and major security flaw that was recently discovered in a wide variety of different CPUs. And the name of these flaws are Meltdown and Spectre. And for those of you who do not know or have not yet heard of this major flaw in these CPUs, it basically allows a potential hacker or attacker to bypass all of the security on your computer and access personal information. Now down below in the notes I will post a link that will take you to a page that will list all of the specific CPUs that are affected by this massive major security flaw. But in short, the possibility of you being affected by this flaw is very, very high just because of the sheer number of CPUs on the list. Basically every Intel chip that's been made in the last decade and almost every AMD chip that's been made since 2011 are on this list. Let me be clear, whether you use a Windows computer, an Apple Mac computer, Linux, an iPad, an iPhone, or an Android device, all of those are affected by this major security flaw. So from there arises the question, what can you do to protect yourself? Well, the good news is Meltdown can be patched or resolved by updating your operating system. Now, updates are nothing new on my channel. It's something I've always said and continue to repeat. Keep everything up to date. So if you use a Windows computer, update your operating system. Same with an Apple Mac computer, an iPad, iPhone, Android, or Linux, update your operating system, and that can protect you against the Meltdown security flaw. Likewise, I would also strongly recommend you update your web browsers such as Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, and Microsoft Edge and Safari will update when you update the operating systems from Apple and Microsoft. Now that is Meltdown. Spectre is a more complicated flaw and must be solved at the hardware level, which means it's going to require a BIOS or firmware update in order to protect yourself. Now this BIOS or firmware update is going to vary depending on the device you're using. If it's an iPhone, iPad, or an Android, doing the update on those mobile devices should help protect you against Spectre. Same with an Apple Mac computer because Apple controls all of the hardware that is in the computer. Windows PCs though are going to be more difficult because not everyone's using the same hardware in a Windows PC. So getting that BIOS or firmware update is going to be different for everyone. It's going to depend on where or how you acquired your Windows computer. If you have a pre-built system, for example, if it came from Dell, Acer, Lenovo, HP, etc., you're going to have to go to those companies' websites and keep an eye out for the BIOS or firmware updates. They should have that information on their websites, and you're going to have to check it periodically because those updates have not yet been released, and there's probably going to be multiple updates. So even if you find an update within the coming weeks, you're probably going to have to check it again in the next 30 days, after that 60 or 90 days as well, just to make sure that there's not additional updates to the first one. If you have a custom built computer, you're going to have to look for a BIOS update pertaining specifically to the manufacturer of your motherboard. For example, Asus, MSI, Gigabyte, etc. And it's the same thing. You're going to have to check it periodically. Make sure that even if you find an update, it may not be a one and done deal. There may be multiple updates, and again I want to clarify these updates have not yet been released, so you will have to stay up to date on this. Periodically check these companies' websites for the BIOS and firmware updates to protect yourself against Spectre. Now another point I do want to address is because of the sheer number of CPUs that are affected by this flaw and the amount of manpower and work that it's going to take to fix this flaw, and because it has to be done specific for each CPU and the number of companies that are involved in this fix, there is a real possibility that if you're using an older computer, you may never get an update, which means that computer will never be safe again. They're going to prioritize the most commonly used CPUs or computers, and they're also going to prioritize the newer hardware, the newer CPUs, the newer motherboards to protect against Spectre. So again, keep an eye out. If you don't see an update and you have an older computer, there's a good possibility you never will. And you're going to have to update to a newer computer to protect yourself and keep your information safe. Additionally, it's important to note that these updates very well may have an impact on performance. It's going to vary for everyone. It's going to depend on what operating system you're using, which CPU, which motherboard. So not everyone's going to be affected the same way, and it also depends on what you actually use your device for. One person may see a huge impact on their performance, another may not. The range of performance can go from 1 to 2% to possibly up to 30%. So there's a very wide range of performance impact. Regardless, though, you have to do the update. You cannot prioritize performance over this security flaw because, again, as I already mentioned, these flaws allow a potential hacker or attacker to bypass all security on your computer and access personal information. So you absolutely must do the updates. That's everything for this video. If you have any comments, suggestions, or questions, please post them down in the notes below. And as always, thank you very much for watching.